All right, good evening. My name is Kevin Cox. I'm excited to be here. I just got asked to moderate this event, and so it's a privilege to do that. I know, with everybody that is here today, I want you to know that you're greatly appreciated. Your time is valuable. Everybody in this room has a vote, has an opinion, and they matter. It doesn't matter where you're at, which side you're on right now. Nothing matters more than you just understanding that you have a voice tonight to ask a question. I trust many of you, if not all of you, have been to events like this. You've gone to several of these, probably getting bored with them. I'm getting a little tired of this text message. I just got another one from somebody running in a state I don't even live in. And so, I'm getting a little tired of those things. But anyway, I want you guys to know that because your time matters, I want to ensure that everybody has an opportunity to ask a question. I talked to Don early on, and I asked him, I said, hey, if we're going to do this, then let's do it a little bit differently. We're not going to stack the deck with questions. If you've gone to any of those events where you write down your question, you turn it in, and then you come in with a new question, but you don't get to ask it. Well, we don't want to do that tonight. We wanted to be able to present everybody with an opportunity to ask a question, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Does that sound all right? I think it sounds fair. I think that way nobody knows what any question anybody's going to be asking, and it's just going to be fair across the board. I want to acknowledge that there are some candidates in this room, and so after the Q&A, which ends about 7:30, isn't that better? About 7:30, a little closer. Used to a different mic. There's going to be an opportunity if you'd like to ask some different questions or get to know them a little bit deeper. It doesn't matter who the candidate is. If they're in this room, you have an opportunity to ask them questions after the Q&A. I think that's fair as well. Now, as we dive in to the pressing issues that is facing Loveland, facing our community, I want to acknowledge that there are some rules. If you know me, some of you know me, I'm pretty strict. I'm a pastor, but I'm pretty strict, tough love. And so I'm going to acknowledge some rules, and I just want to remind everybody that we need to be respectful, constructive, because we're here to be informed. We're here to ask questions so that we can gain information, so that we can go away from this venue and make a wise decision on who we're going to vote for. Whether it is Don, whether it's Jackie Marsh, whether it's Burgers, no matter who it is, at the end of the day, we have to be informed so that we can make a decision for ourselves on who we're going to vote for. And I think that's fair as well. So let me remind you of some rules that we're going to follow. Cell phones. Can you at least turn them on vibrate? At least turn those on vibrate. Excuse me. Respect and civility. When somebody's asking a question, as a moderator, I don't want to hear another voice. I really don't. I want to give that person asking the question the respect that they deserve and the time that they deserve to ask that question. So please, don't talk over each other. If you have a different opinion, keep it to yourself because it's not your question. And so I think that's very respectful to all. No derogatory statements, no name calling, none of those things. Let's just be adults in this room tonight. No personal testimony. This is a Q&A. And so one of the things that frustrates me, I was the one that got to make up these rules. And so one of the things that frustrates me when I go to something like this is I have to listen to 2 minutes of my own situation before the question even comes out. I just want to hear the question. And so let's minimize all the other thoughts and opinions, and let's just ask the question. I want to limit repetition. And so if you've already heard the question, don't ask it again. Because we only have 45 minutes now, an hour to get through everybody. And I want everybody to have an opportunity to ask their question. Moderator's discretion. This one's tough. I'm going to be walking around and allowing everybody to have the mic and ask their question. But I care so much about each person as an individual that I am going to protect them I'm not allowing other people to just discredit them, talk over them, or speak against them. So if I end up, I'll ask you to be quiet, but if I have to ask twice, I'm just gonna ask you to leave. Is that fair?
Fair.
Because I think this is what makes all of us frustrated when we go to these events, is somebody begins to voice their opinion over everybody else, and they kind of take the stage. And again, I don't care left, right, middle, up or down. This is for everybody. Sound good?
Yeah.
All right, I don't think I have anything else. You got a good roll? I'm old school military, and I just got to get it out there. And so it's just the way it is. Again, questions to dive in deeper afterwards. We're going to jump right in. So if anybody has a question, I'm going to come to you, and we're going to get everybody. So don't think that I'm going to hide this mic from people just because I don't know you or whatever, okay?
Name and question, so I know who I'm talking to.
Name and question, so we know, and speak loud, because I'm not doing a good job.
Hi, Don. I can't vote for you because I live in Berthoud, but I have a question I think is very important for anybody who's going to be mayor of Loveland. In northern Colorado, there is no city now that's an
I'm sorry, name first?
Oh, Mark Morris from
Mark,
Berthoud.
thanks, Mark.
So in northern Colorado today, there is no city that's an island unto itself. And the mayor is an influential person in a lot of decisions that are more regional in nature. So I just invite you to speak to that in any way that you want to. Your understanding of the importance of the role of the mayor in a regional sense.
Good, thanks, Mark. When you don't know the questions, you wonder sometimes if you know the answers. So if I take a minute or two and everybody hear Mark's question, okay, I think I heard it as the role of regionalism and the role of the mayor in particular in working as a regional partner. Sound good?
Yes.
That is a good question, because I know from serving as the chair of the Northern Colorado Regional Airport, that is a real regional opportunity for Northern Colorado. Yet it's owned by two cities, so we have two city councils involved. And then you have the fact that it's really a regional airport. We view it that way. So I'm in conversations constantly with Windsor, with the mayor of Windsor already, and with Johnstown and their city council, on how we can pull those communities into the function that the airport can serve for Northern Colorado. So we don't operate as an island. We have to have those relationships in place. And the biggest challenge when you're working with people in other cities, we all have our priorities. You know, the Fort Collins City Council has its priorities, and they're very different than the Loveland City Council. We're very different cities. And I'll touch on that a little bit later, I'm sure, in some of the questions. But we have to not only respect each other's priorities, but we have to understand them thoroughly and allow for there to be disagreement because we're living in different cities. But simultaneously, you have to work as a magnet to pull people in to common goals and common benefits. So how can we do good work together? We talk about, I know there's a lot of concern in one of the other cities regarding our sales tax policy here in Loveland and the impact that's going to have on them. So we're already in conversations with them. We've worked diligently on I-25. Dave Clark, former city councilor of Loveland, was very instrumental in working with that, but it was the entire city council. We work as a unit. One individual can represent the council, and one individual should represent the will of the council and not just run their own agenda. So I think you're communicating, building relationships, and know that your intention is what good work can we do collaboratively together. Is that good?
Yeah.
Good, thank you.
Name and question.
I'm Elijah Santos, and when you become mayor, what is going to be on the list, the highest priority of what you're going to take action about? Like what's on the top of that list?
Wow. Good, Elijah. You know, I was at an event the other night. I was invited in, and the father and mother of Elijah were present, but Elijah wasn't there. So I said, "Where is he?" And he said, "Well, he's home doing something." I said, "Give me the cell phone." I called him up, and he came. and jumped right into the conversation. He risked himself tonight early on, so thanks, Elijah, for doing that. Great young man. I think one of the first things we need to do is establish how is council going to operate and function as a body. We hear a lot of things in Facebook in particular. I'm glad you're here. If you rely upon Facebook for your information, you're going to be misled. No matter what side you're on, we need conversation and dialogue. And council's been working quite well together. When you look at most of our votes, they're 8-1, 7-2, and that comes after weeks and weeks of study and preparation and conversations. In and outside of chambers, one-on-ones. What are you thinking? What are the issues? So I think council needs to come together and reestablish how are we going to work together for the next 2 years. There's been some struggles over the last 6 years, unlike any that I experienced my first 2 years on council, and I think that comes from the role of the center chair and establishing that. Be a facilitator. You're not the chief negotiator, you're the facilitator to allow others to work as a body. That'll be number one. Probably by November 9th.
Don't be shy.
Oh, by the way, it's okay to ask a question. I heard somebody say, I'd like you to address it. That's okay. I won't take it personal if you ask that question. Just let me know. You can't get me off game. I just want to be open and honest with you. I kind of do this for a living, working with organizations. So whatever you have, give me a chance to respond to it. That's all I ask for tonight. So thank you. Go ahead.
All right, Don, Pat Santos.
Hi, Pat.
Hi. And I have a question about the homeless. I mean, we've obviously had an increased presence of homeless. What would you do differently about that than we're on course to today?
Pat wants to know what we would do differently regarding the homeless situation. Loveland didn't have a severe homeless situation prior to COVID. Agreed? I'm looking at someone who's been very involved in the homeless and the street community for years. Prior to COVID, we had a community effort to address that situation. I know I spent one night or one weekend a month, pretty regular basis, in our church basement, sleeping on a cot because we had 4 or 5 families staying at the church. And during the day, you got fed in the morning, you got fed at night, people would bring food in. During the day, people were driving them to get needs met, whether it might be medical needs, getting their kids to school or to the bus, getting them ready for job interviews. The community was doing a pretty good job. Now, cost of living and all that, it's been there. But we're talking about the people that really don't want to be homeless, but they're forced into the situation. When COVID hit, it seemed like everything shut down. We got off game. And we quit taking care of the needs of others. We became much more isolated and taking care of our family needs and our own fears. We started following mandates. We started isolating more. It was a big change in our society, change in the workplace. So I'd like to see us get back, and we addressed this about a month ago. I'm not real good with numbers or dates, so I'd say a month, it might have been 6 weeks, but it was about 6 weeks ago. I challenged council to have city staff dedicate an hour and a half of one of our meetings, and for city council to have a conversation about what should the policy be, city council's policy, directing city regarding the homeless situation. In particular, the tough questions, the tough issues that we're dealing with downtown here. And we spent an hour and a half talking about that. It was develop a policy statement. You know, people get involved in tactics. They run off and do this, we run off and do this, and we feel good about it because we're doing the good work. But there was no clear policy of how we're going to do it. In other words, what is the role of the city with its limited resources? What's the role of the community? What are the issues the city can take on and address effectively? Where do we need help? Where do we need to get the community mobilized to come alongside us and help us, like we did prior to COVID, where things were working much better? And we didn't have a statement like that. It was a lack of leadership. We were busy doing things, and we're trying to figure things out. It's not that nobody cares about the issue, but we just see it's not working across our country. It's not getting better in cities that say they're going to aggressively deal with it, like Denver, or San Francisco, or Chicago. It's not getting better. And we need to work differently. And there's some people that practice policies out there or push them. And, you know, I remember growing up after World War II, and the big fear was the military-industrial complex.
Yep.
Remember all that? That conversation, and I was a child of the late 60s, and I was outside with my signs protesting too, in college, whatever. It's hard to remember, I had hair back then, but what we're not doing is we're many times throwing money at things because there's a cause or a group, and I'm wondering if there's a homeless industrial policy. I saw on one of the news shows, they had a feature about apartments in Seattle and San Francisco, very expensive property, if we want to talk about property, and they were turning them into homeless shelters. And where was the money coming from to build these? Well, it's our money, it's funneled different ways, and they were, a group out of New York was building apartments in Seattle and moving people in. And they're like $4,000 a month apartments. And they were considering that dealing with the homeless problem. I'm not really sure that's really dealing with the homeless problem. That's just warehousing people or moving people around. So what will we do different? I think we need more community engagement. And we're going to have to go back to that. And I think we also have to remember, and the concept was used earlier by Kevin. I'll try to keep my answer shorter, but it's hard for me. I care about this stuff. But he used the phrase, tough love. If you really love people, you're not warehousing them, you're looking for transformational change. How do you help them change their lives from one of addiction to one of freedom? How do you do that? You don't do that by giving them more heroin. I'm sorry, it just doesn't work. We see that in other cities. But it's going to take a community spirit and community will to address this problem. But we have to remember we're dealing with people. And everyone likes to be treated in a special way. And they need to be treated in a special way because we're all different. Our needs are different. And that's where I think we really need patience, but we need firmness as well. And that firmness has to come from your community. City council is just a reflection of the community. No, I mean, I was sitting in your chair 8 years ago, now I'm up here. That's what we need. We need that engagement, not just from people who are upset about things, but people who really care about making the difference and willing to put the work in. So it's not a concrete answer because I don't think there's one there, but I know there's people, I know there's solutions out there. That's what I like working on. How do we make things better for tomorrow by what we do today? So thank you. I'll try to be a little shorter. I can try.
And I'd like to add to, no, I'm kidding.
Moderator's supposed to shut me off. It's his problem. I don't have to pay him. No, he didn't do his job. He's got to give me the chain.
Ann Bradbury, and I think that question leads me to the question I have that I didn't even write down, and that's mental health. I would like to know, and I've been working with the school district a little bit on this, how would you do it, to build a bridge to the community from the schools to the community? There is a division, and I would like to know how you might address that and get mental health not only for homeless people that need it, veterans, and school children. That's a big one.
Well, that is a big one. And Ann, I think I am going to have a short answer on this one. And I know you're very involved in the school board, and the school board manages the school district. City council is responsible for the city side, but there's some overlap. The city has been providing school resource officers to the schools for years, and we've increased that number over the last year. We now have people in the middle schools. That's a bridge for mental health, because those men and women that serve as school resource officers are very connected with the students. They're very trusted by the students, and that's a bridge to help get them directed. But we really all need to be bridges for people. If I know that Zeke here has a need, I can be a bridge to get him connected with someone over here that can help meet that need. But it takes people willing to be involved and the sensitivity to open yourselves up and be involved and help with that. We've addressed with officers here in our police department where we have mental health specialists working with our officers. So an officer doesn't have to do everything like we used to expect of a police officer. So that's another way of building a bridge. But I think we have to continue to work for ways to connect resources with the people in need and break down the walls of which organization's doing it. Can we just consider this is our community and can we just work together? This person needs help and you're willing to help them, I should help bridge that instead of saying it's not my problem, it's the school board's or vice versa. I think we have to break those walls down and get over the politics that often come with, from the national scene.
This is going to dovetail on that. Lori Doble. And Olivia Lowe said something at councils a few weeks back, and she said during public comment about looking outside of our city for some solutions. We should look to what has worked, what hasn't worked in other places. So my question, and also I believe it was at the same city council meeting that the current mayor floated the idea of a clean needle exchange. I don't know any city where that has worked, but I'd like to know your opinion on that and maybe on some other, like say maybe drug-related issues that face our city.
So the question is?
The question is, what do you think about a clean needle exchange?
Okay, so there was a little preamble there. I wanted to make sure I didn't start answering the wrong thing, but that's okay. I don't support that. I'm sorry, I just don't support a clean needle exchange. What else do I need to give them that in essence encourages themselves to continue harming themselves? I'm sure there's a way to help them besides, here's another dozen needles. I'm a pharmacist. I used to sell those in bags of 10. They were $1.95 for 10 BD syringes back then for insulin. And I just don't see how that's really going to solve the problem with people. That might be a step of getting people involved and getting the help they need, but why would I encourage an alcoholic to drink more? I'll open the can for you. I understand the health issue, but sometimes we have to take tough action if you really care. How many of you have kids? How many have taken tough love with your kids? It's not easy, is it? It's easy just to get, simple solutions generally don't work. So I would need to be more educated or convinced that that would be a good idea. I just haven't seen where it has been.
And she asked where your thoughts were at with looking outside of Loveland for help.
Yeah, people are solution-minded, do that all the time. I know our city staff's looking outside and talking. We have outside people that we're working with all the time on issues within the city, almost any issue. You don't know everything. There's no way you can know everything, but you should be responsible to learn everything you can about an issue. We have counselors that specialize. They have certain areas they're really passionate about. You have a gentleman in the back row here sitting next to Gloria, Councilor Rosen. He's been in the behavioral health in this homeless situation since 2016, 17. If he sends me any more books or any more articles, I'm going to change my email address. He's looking into things all the time, and he shares that with Councilor Sampson, sitting right next to him. Councilor Sampson will share information with us. She's passionate about disability. She shares that with us. The staff does the same thing. We all have areas that we're passionate about, and we focus on them, and we share that information. And that's how we bring in that knowledge so we can help make decisions that are right for Loveland, not just taking a rubber stamp that works in Denver and say, oh, that worked here, it changed something 2%, let's do it in Loveland. And it doesn't work, does it? No. But we need to understand and be open to understanding and be willing to say, you know what, they spent $1 billion and it didn't work. Is that how you want to spend your tax money? So we need to be creative, but we need to get that information from the outside. Otherwise, you run out of ideas on your own. You got to be open-minded and draw from others.
Question.
Am I close enough to the mic?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a miracle. I'm normally way over here, and I must be getting used to this.
My
Hi.
name is Tammy, I'm from Loveland, and here's my question. I've heard city council, city staff, and Homeward Alliance say that we have no services in Loveland. I've lived here for over 30 years, and I know we've had services. We have the amazing HNS, Glory Neighbor right here. We have had services. We have had this homeless issue as long as I've lived here. But I'm tired of the city saying we don't have them, we don't have them. Homeward Alliance, I heard them say it to city council, Loveland has no services. They completely ignore the private industry that has been helping our community for so many years.
Tammy, I'm afraid I don't remember that statement being made. I don't agree with that at all. But I don't recall it being, we sit there some nights 5 hours and I might not have heard.
Well, Homeward Alliance is the one that said it, but
Yeah,
city staff.
I disagree, let me just say I disagree with that service, or that statement. If anything, I think there's people that criticize us for having too many services. I don't think we have too many services. I think we need to apply our services in a more targeted manner at times. And there are audiences within the population we have to work with differently. And that's what I hear from those who are providing the services, so I think we do a lot. Thank you. By the way, where's the cowboy hat tonight? Where's Jeff?
My name's Steve Smith, and I have a question about, like the Reporter Herald, for example, has the daily record in it, which gives a snapshot every day of crime in our community. And there's consistent patterns of repeated crimes. They're not the big ones, as a rule. They don't usually list those. They're usually in a separate article or something like that. But my question would be, where is the monitoring of this type of activity taking place? Is there a coordination between council and the police department and sheriff's department and in general, all of them working together using tools like that to look at the patterns of the kind of crime that's going on in our community and use that as a red flag type of an awareness of what we need to be addressing?
Yeah, thank you. Council's not directly involved in the day-to-day. They'll set policy and make sure they have the funding. But I know that our police department, the sheriff's department, there's former law enforcement officers here with us, and probably maybe some current ones, but tonight. But there's a definite attention to data, and it's how they will stage their districts. They've changed their process a little bit over with their new chief. They track the data. They move people around. We've been short-staffed, like most communities in Colorado, since COVID. The political structure down in Denver has not been helpful for attracting police officers or retaining police officers. We've lost a lot of good men and women to other communities, other states. We are close to being, I think, fully staffed by the end of next year. I'm looking at, council members, now that helps me because I don't remember all the details, but they have to go through a training and onboarding process, but we're getting really close. When I came on council at the end of 2015, we had some real challenges. We had a police chief retiring, we had staffing issues, we had pay issues, we had morale issues. We finally got everything up to speed. We got the salaries adjusted so they're at least median or better. We got the departments organized. It was rolling fine, and then we hit a glitch a few years ago, and COVID certainly didn't help. I think we're on the right path now. They've reorganized the department. Morale's significantly different. You can tell that when you meet the men and women who are serving, there's been a change in pattern. So I think, again, I don't want to blame everything on COVID, but I think it had an impact, and it really showed some of the deficiencies that were already present. They manifested themselves, but crime is going up. If you want to make a living, just shoplift. How many are frustrated with shoplifting? And you realize it's not really treated seriously at the state level. It's not treated seriously at the county level. Officers are frustrated. We enforce the law, what law we can, and then it doesn't go anywhere. It's a turnstile. We hear about places that have no bail. Some of the major cities. I look at what's happening in Illinois, where all the sheriff's departments, I think all of them, have banded together and said this law with no bail is ridiculous. So public safety is their number one strategic concern in the city. And public safety means people, property. And that means fire, roads, police. All that's public safety. It's about 49% of our general fund budget is public safety, and it should be. It should be. We should expect that. We should demand that. After that, we'll take whatever we can get, because we all have our interests. But it's a serious matter, and I know the police department's very committed to that. And I know as well, they're getting a lot of feedback from the citizens now that's a lot different than what we had to endure a few years ago. And they really appreciate that as well, and that's going to help us with our retention effort. People want to work where they're appreciated. They want to work where they're allowed to do their job and do it well. Or they'll leave, won't we all? Our police department's no different. They made some tremendous strides in the last 18 months or so.
Next.
Thank you, Steve. Speaking of a former police officer, former business owner, currently a new business owner, and your name is?
Pete Casley.
Thanks, Pete.
Good to see you. Should 300 pass, the next council will get to deal with the budget. And you just hit on the three most important things, police, fire, and our roads.
Yeah.
But there was a proposal floated a couple of weeks ago for an across-the-board cut to the city budget, which I think would be disastrous for those three departments. So as the leader of the council, if you're mayor next time around, how would you prioritize the cuts to the budget should that pass?
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk on that, so, and I don't know how things get sideways, whether it's misinformation or how it happens. Part of our budgeting process each year is we need to approve a budget. Now, how many of you have a household budget? I hope everyone does. And if you anticipate retiring a year from now, do you start looking at ways you're going to adjust your budget in your household to accommodate that decrease in revenue? Of course we do. And you prioritize what's important to you. Your house is your number one expense. Transportation is your number two expense. Food's your number three expense. And after that, everything's got to wait, right? We're all the same. I don't know how many businesses I manage and we go through a budget process. And we always say, what if we have a great year? What's the upside? What do we get to buy? What do we get to do? And then you got your baseline, right? Yeah, I'm a saver. Yeah, stock it away, yeah. Maybe a round of golf for everybody. But you got your base budget. But you have to be prepared. What if a disaster hits? What if you got a decrease? If you don't plan for it and have discussions around it, it doesn't mean you're hoping it happens. You're going to do whatever you can to avoid it, but you have to be prepared for it. And that's what City Council has been very demanding of our city staff. Matter of fact, the city manager, he's not here tonight because I put him on the spot. He got frustrated, what was it, 2 weeks ago? I'm looking at councilors. 3 weeks ago? I never saw a city manager Adam so frustrated because one of our councilors I'm looking at kept asking for more information, more detail. We want to know if this happens, what are our options? Because you have to balance the budget. We're not the federal government. We just didn't go out and print more money and spend it. Now, that'd be kind of fun for a while, but we don't do it that way. Your city is your most responsible form of government we have. We have to run a balanced budget. So we started discussions. What are we going to do? Well, the city came back, well, the easy thing as a starting point, 15% across the board. And of course, they knew we're not going to accept that. No one's going to accept that. That's a simple answer. It doesn't work. So we went through that exercise a couple of times. Okay, bring us back what it would look like if it was even, we didn't do across the board. We fully funded public safety. Now what would it look like? What would go next? We're looking at options. That's all we're doing. You have to be prepared. I'm a Boy Scout. Be prepared. You have to be prepared. And you can't be prepared. I call it proper preparation prevents poor performance. The 5 Ps. You can add a 6P, but not in this audience. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. That's what council was doing. And I think staff was getting worn out, but they caught on to what we're trying to do. We're trying to come up, have that information available, that if we need to, at some point in time, we can start implementing things that we need to do to balance the budget, and we know nobody's gonna be happy. We all have our specials, but that's what we were doing, and I seriously doubt we would do across the board. I know I would not support that, and I think the council majority would not support that. But we are looking into what else we can do if we have to, and be prepared for that. And actually, let me just address it quickly, one last comment on that. I think it's been a great exercise. I think this whole ballot initiative, I wish Councilor Sampson and I made a motion that we would study this going in the beginning of next year completely, because she had some issues, I had some issues, and we said, well, why don't we just, instead of cherry picking our top issue, why don't we get the entire council volunteered to be on the subcommittee? Well, that's good. Now coordinate that. You got 9 people. I'm glad everybody volunteered. We know we needed to do something because we haven't addressed the issue, had a real serious conversation since 1984 with our community. And we're operating at the lowest tax level up and down the Front Range. But we're a full-service city. Tinmouth and Wellington have the same tax rate we have. They don't provide the services the city provides. So I think we've done good in providing it, but if we need to adjust that budget. I think at this point we're prepared that in one night we can make that happen. And maybe it's going to be in stages, but we'll wait and see. But now we have the information, so I feel really comfortable about it. I know what I got, I know how to do it. Next question. Kevin, thank you, Pete.
Hi, I'm Bob Berger, and I'm not in the city limits at this time, but I've been here for 52 years.
A little closer, Bob.
I've been here 52 years. Someday I'll probably be in the city limits. But my question is, we know that the city is growing like nuts. It's going to be it's going to go from 80,000 to 150,000 in the foreseeable future, right? And so I'm concerned about the infrastructure. That's everything from sewers to people and services. And we keep adding more services like homeless services and things like that. Instead of continuing to cut, are there any ways we can get more tax revenue without affecting the normal human beings here in this room? What would it take to get more money?
So without raising taxes, how can you bring in more revenue?
Well, since 1984, we've been bringing in more revenue every year without raising taxes. We do that because we're a magnet for business activity. We're a magnet now for shopping. We need a grocery store, 2 of them, actually 3. Anybody live in the Ward 1? Where's Russ? Yeah, Pete, you guys Ward 1? You got a grocery store up there, but you got to go to Walmart, right? And your area is one of the fastest growing areas of the city. So by attracting businesses, because we have jobs, and we're going to attract the need for housing, right? Because you got activity, but you generate the revenue in order to pay for the people that are coming. They're going to come. Our build out is going to be around 150,000 people, and good news is we have water for the next 50 years. That's why we finally got that reservoir under construction. We're wasting water right now. It's running down to Big Thompson right now. It's not being stored. We have no place to put it. We had a fortunate year. But we need to be able to attract, we got the people, we got the jobs, right? So we need to attract the businesses and keep that economic engine going inside. And your primary employers are a real key to that because they bring revenue into the city instead of just passing it back and forth. So when I was first on council, I believe the general revenue fund was around, in 2015, it was around 44 million. In 2015. This year we're predicting, if it stays at 3% across the board like it, we're predicting around 62 million. That's because of growth inside the city. People used to go to Fort Collins for restaurants. Now we get to go to 222 downstairs or other places in town. Same with shopping. Hold our population instead of it. Right now, you know what we got to drain? You know that leaky bucket syndrome? people talk, if you keep putting water in, but it's got holes in the bottom, it leaks out, how do you fill it? Guess where our tax dollars are going right now? Number one magnet for our tax dollars, sales tax. Johnstown, 2534 is not in Loveland. City Council back in 2003 or 4, again, whatever year it was, turned it down. Johnstown annexed that property, there went Shields. We lost Shields because we didn't have the tools to attract them on our side. They went into where they got some incentives from Johnstown, and that's their anchor. So now we're driving in our highways, our roads, our congestion, to go to Johnstown to go shopping. And we get no benefit of that. What if all that sales tax was in Loveland? Then we'd be paying for those roads here with our dollars. Where does the money go? So we've done a good job of keeping it and growing that way without raising sales tax. Does that answer, Bob?
Sort
A
of.
bit, sort of. I'd say gentleman's got the mic in the back. He's walking around with the mic, sir.
I think I can handle it.
Okay. No, hold on. He's next. Okay. Go ahead.
Good evening. Russell Sinet. Don, November 7th, if you win this election, the next morning, November 8th, what changes? What happens if you become mayor and Jackie Marsh loses to you? What do we expect from you as a new mayor?
You can expect a solution provider who works with others to get things done versus my way or the highway. I did it, 15 seconds. Thank you. I've always been an over-explainer. My poor wife.
Don,
No, the gentleman's with the mic. The moderator's got the mic.
I was told that I could ask a clarifying question because I wasn't sure if I understood the fact that you're gonna get more money in here just by retail, but I also know that it's hard to start a new business in this town itself because of all the fees and hoops. Is that gonna change?
Well, the answer is you want to be business friendly. We have, again, numbers, around 6,700 businesses in Loveland. We employ around 43,000 people. We're a very different community than Fort Collins. Fort Collins does not have an economic development department. They have a university called CSU with 34,000 students and 53,000 employees. Totally different economic engine, isn't it? So we don't want to be Fort Collins because we don't have the university. We can't be that. Our community thrives based on businesses. We do have a business economic development department, and they primarily work with small businesses. I got a list, I got a sheet over here, I need a cheat sheet to remember numbers, but that's their primary focus, is focusing on those startup businesses. We fund some of that down here at the old HP facility, warehouse. We have a small grant we give them, and they function in that way to get guys going. But we're focused on business attraction and retention. And the chamber helps us a lot on the retention side. So we got to work together with that because your business community drives it. That keeps your dollars in town, it keeps your jobs in town, it solves your traffic problems if you live and work in the same town. I know about that. I used to have to get on an airplane and fly 700 miles to go to work every morning. So I'd make that trip twice a week. I love being able to work and live and worship in the same town and shop in the same town. I haven't been to Fort Collins since I don't know when for shopping. So support your businesses, help them thrive, and keep that business in town, as well as providing those job opportunities. So that's one of the functions that we focus on. That's one of my areas that I like to focus on. So, yes, ma'am.
My name is Kay-Ann Sprague, and my question, well, it's kind of two-part. I just see, and I know the city doesn't have a lot to do with our taxes on our homes and stuff, but the raise that they had this time was outrageous. And I know I fought it, and it helped some, but a lot of people did. That's one. Because our taxes are not being utilized the way I feel like they should be. And it's hard for me to even keep my home. The other thing is.
So, I'm sorry, is there a question in that you want me to
Yeah,
address?
is there
or-
something that you can do to coordinate with the county?
Lower the mill levy, cancel action.
I mean,
I hear you.
it's just making it really difficult.
How many people love their property tax bill?
And they're spending it the way
Yeah.
it should be.
Right, so,
Then my second part is the PIF fee that is on everything you buy in Johnstown, at Centera, in the Fort Collins Mall, and stuff. And the third thing is the bag fee.
well, I think,
It's all bureaucratic.
yeah, it's Cheyenne, right? What's your name?
KN.
Cayenne?
KN.
KN, I'm sorry. We got 3 things we agree on.
You are good.
Absolutely. The problem is we're not in control of all 3, and we have to work with some different bodies to make that happen. The first one, property taxes. The county is supported, they get their money from property taxes. That's their funding mechanism. Yeah, they got some fees and, a little bit of sales tax, like 0.8 or something. Their primary revenue generator is property taxes. They love property taxes. Now, a lot of that's out of our control with, the fact that our home value goes up, but they could be controlling these mill levies. And a few years ago, we voted as citizens to change the process a little bit with Gallagher, and we lost some protection in our home rates. And I'm not a Gallagher expert. I'm not going to get into it tonight, but we have an issue. Our county needs to know we're not happy. Your city gets its revenue primarily from sales tax. That's what funds our general fund, funds your police department, everything. That's our primary. Yes, we have some fees and things like that. But it's primarily your sales tax. Bag fees are ridiculous. I mean, think about it. Really? I refuse to pay 10 cents, and I can pay it, but I carry it in my arms if I have to, put it in the car and carry it back. My neighbors look at it, why don't you buy a bag? I'm not going to buy a bag I shouldn't have to buy when, it's just another story, right?
Buy another box.
Or another box, right.
A double layer
So-
box, so they got all the stinking boxes.
Okay.
in the back.
The last part of that was the PIF. Okay, what we're talking about, and that's a topic that we've talked about a lot on council. We're always talking about, really, it comes down to financing. How are we going to finance a street or a road? The city doesn't build anything. We can maintain it, we pay others to build it. It's the way it's always been. It's probably the way it should be. Things get done better, right? The city. So how is it going to be financed? Well, if you can finance it through your primary means of sales tax, that would be great. But right now, I know we have a list of projects that exceeds $500 million. That's if I throw off 20% of them that would never see the light of day, which put us around 700 million. Unfunded needs that have been identified. The number of miles of sidewalks. If we're talking about transportation and it's supposed to be safe, we're missing sidewalks. And we've been adding sidewalks every year. We don't have enough money in our general fund just to say, let's make sidewalks our priority this year and build them. There's no reason we can't do that, except money. So I'll get to that because I got to move on it. But when we talk about these fees and PIFs, what those are, they're financing tools. You're trying to find the money to pay for the infrastructure so that a business can locate there affordably or a neighborhood can be built because the infrastructure is expensive and the cost of concrete alone has gone up. I wish somebody from the city was here. Any idea? Fourfold? 40%. 40% in the last 4 years. Cost of fuel's gone up what? Inflation's killing us. If people want to talk about affordability and living in Loveland, We should be talking to somebody in the White House that's setting policies that's causing inflation to take a bigger bite out of our checks unnecessarily. Look at the gap. I mean, we could go on all those issues, national, but we can't fix them here in the city. We can complain about them, we can impact them, but we have to live with them. And so we get these extra fees added on in order to get things done, or we just wouldn't do it. We don't have the money in the general fund to do all the infrastructure needs. We've talked about this street out here, Hip Street. We talked about the sidewalks are crumbling. Be careful when you leave. The curbs are crumbling. Be careful when you leave, right? And I've seen some have been repaired, and yet 2 years later, another one's crumbling. We've been talking about that prior to me getting on council in 2015. I know the former mayor, Mayor Gutierrez, was talking about it for years, because I served with some of those councilors that carried over. We're finally finding the money between grants and saving and making it a priority to fix the sidewalks. Because you know what we also have to do? That infrastructure underneath. We finally got rid of one of our last wooden pipes that was carrying the water just a few years ago. The electrical grid downtown here made it impossible for the chamber to conduct corn roast down here. It was a nightmare for them. So they moved it out to the fairgrounds, which worked out great. But then people complained we didn't have the event downtown. Well, we didn't have the infrastructure to support that type of event downtown. So we finally have prioritized, and we're going to be addressing 4th Street, several blocks each way, and then expanding that. But it's funding. We got to find the funds to do that. And the sales tax at 3% doesn't do it. So we look for ways around that to generate that revenue. And other communities are doing the same. So yes, it gets to be hard. Kevin, sorry. See, you got to get it. I need another short answer. Al's going to give me one, right, Al?
Right.
Okay.
As you heard, my name is Al, and I live here in Loveland. I've lived here since 2005. I moved up here from Longmont because of too much gang violence, and it's better here. But my question was...
The gang violence is better here or it's less here? I just don't know who's recruiting, you know?
Attacking me is a little complicated.
Okay.
Can't hear you.
Okay, my question is...
Perfect.
Out there on the other side in Johnstown, I understand we provide all the critical services. And what I've been hearing, the feedback I've been getting, is the services are actually running about 50 to 80% higher than what was planned. Who's involved with planning those when something new goes in?
I'm not sure, I'll be honest, I'm not sure what you mean by providing the critical services. Which critical services are you thinking?
Fire and
Well, okay, fire is a district that surrounds, it's a lot bigger. Our fire department is bigger than just Loveland. It includes rural areas. It's like our school district. It goes outside city boundaries or separate bodies. So our fire department covers a great deal of that area. It just makes sense. We got a fire station out there, and it's part of the fire district. Loveland supports the fire district a certain percentage, around 80%, and then the rural fire district supplies the funds for the other 20%. So that 20% would be paying for the services out in that area.
now does that come from Johnstown?
It comes from residents in that area that could have a residence in Johnstown, or they might be county.
Okay,
But
thank you.
yeah, our services, what we pay for, are being applied in our city. Matter of fact, we have communities buying our services. They're coming to us to run Pulse in the county because our department is doing such a fantastic job of installing it and competing with Comcast. Thank goodness we broke that monopoly up. It took about 2 years for Councilor Fogel and others to convince me that was a good idea. It was a great idea. And they're paying us to extend those services. So we're actually selling some of our services to others that don't have it. Good. Kevin? Thank you. Hi, Earl.
Yeah, hey, thanks, Don, for coming out tonight. Earl Sethry, next year, it'll be 50 years for me in Loveland, so I've seen a few things, and I know a few things. One of the things that I really enjoyed 30-some years ago was a functional airport, one that actually had commercial service, Continental and United, and we didn't always have to go to DIA. I see that we hit another bump in the runway, or the tower.
Yeah.
And I'd like to ask you what the heck's going on, because this thing is dragging on, and I think we have enough critical mass. Somebody talked about regional, somebody's talked about being 150,000 people. I hope that doesn't happen, but we have enough critical mass in northern Colorado to support at least some commercial flights out of the airport. And I know you're very close to it. You're the chairman on the commission, so could you talk to us about what's going on out there?
Yeah, good, thanks, Earl. This is a simple solution. Earl, you're one of the most generous people I know in our community. Would you happen to have $100 million laying around? You can't blame me for asking, right? If you don't ask, you don't receive. I read that somewhere. But the airport, we call it a regional airport. It's jointly owned by Fort Collins and Loveland. And we both have different priorities and different funding struggles right now. Right now, the airport's receiving zero funding from either city. We awarded $60,000 to put customs in each year, or $50 a year for 3 years, things like that, but no significant investment. You know where the money comes from the airport? Federal government. The FAA is in charge of the airport, as it should be. They're in charge of public safety, and it's a national issue, right? You got to have standards. So our funding comes from the FAA. The secondary source of funding comes from Colorado Department of Transportation, the Department of Aeronautics. His name is Dave Ulane. He's been up here working with us quite a bit on this tower issue. So the FAA determines what it's going to give you money for. We develop a capital plan. It took me about 2 years to figure out the capital plan for the airport. It only took me about a year to figure it out for the city, because it's different funding mechanisms, and it's very long-term planning, because that's just the way the government operates, very slowly. And there were three areas identified prior to me even being on city council as important for the airport and being mandated by the FAA. So it's not really market-driven as much as it is government-driven, but they do respond, and our market is getting bigger. It should be supported. I finally crystallized all these things into 3 buckets. 3 pieces of a puzzle among a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle that has to be put together. But there's 3 critical pieces that until you get those pieces in place, that puzzle don't fly. One of those is the widening of the runway. It's mandated. Its design study right now is funded. They'll start construction next year. It's around a $15 million, don't hold me on the numbers, I think it's around $15 million number, being funded by the FAA. Why do we need a runway widened when we don't even have air traffic travel here? Because Airbus 320 doesn't operate well on a narrow runway. It needs a wider runway. And future planes, the way aviation's going. So, that's in play. That's a big puzzle piece. It wasn't resolved 3 years ago, or I've been on it for 4 years, but 4 years ago, that piece wasn't there. Another piece that's being resolved is, they say, you gotta have, you can't operate out of a double wide. You can't have an airport that's gonna be a regional airport serving 1 million people in northern Colorado and be operating out of something that looks like the NW that we all remember as a kid. And so we have a counselor that likes to call it our double wide. And it really kind of is. It's more, you can't. You can't provide the services, the security requirements, the customs that you want to be able to provide here in that current facility. In that case, they said you got to get it. So guess what? Something good came out of COVID. $23 million. 16.9 was for the terminal. Build it. We'll approve it. We have to have that built by July of next year with that money that we've been given from the federal government. So we don't like government spending. I don't. Not in some other country, but I love it when it's in Loveland. Because it's our money, isn't it? So that was great. So that was an important piece. It's like a business problem. You got to look at all the pieces we need. It's your home budget, same thing. The third piece is the virtual tower. The FAA came to us in around 2016, along with CDOT, Department of Aeronautics. They came to us and said, we would like to use Loveland as a test because virtual towers are springing up in the world, and we realize it's a way we can improve safety in areas that we just can't, we're not going to put a permanent tower in. We don't have the money for that in every regional airport. But we can put a virtual tower in like they have in England that's been operating for 2 years successfully by the same people that they hired to help us here. That opens up all of Colorado. That's why the Colorado Department of Aeronautics is funding that process. So I met with the director about 2 months ago, and he's given us an update from CDOT. And he's given us an update on what the issues are, what the challenges are, and their commitment to making this a reality. So I said, okay, what do we need to do? What's keeping this from happening? It's in other countries. The same provider that's put it in other countries is working with the FAA. So why isn't this signed off and in effect? The FAA hasn't had a director for how many years? They have a gentleman now who's out of their next gen department, which is like, you know, the technology side of the FAA, which is like a dinosaur, going through confirmation process now. There's been a lack of leadership at the FAA. There's no reason from a technology perspective this doesn't work. Now, those of you in business, this is a touchy question. This is why it's hard. I appreciate tonight, because you can't answer this on Facebook. You can't deal with these issues in that media. But anybody here have a client that you fired? Anybody here be a client and you fired the client? You were the client, but you fired the client? I mean, you were the vendor and you fired the client? Anybody ever walk away from business? Yep. Yep. It's like walking away. There's some relationships we have in life we need to walk away from. And Sea Ridge, the experienced provider, got tired of not getting paid. And the rules changing midstream more than once. Well, you change these rules. Okay, you fix this and then we'll pay you. And then the rules change again. Well, if you get this man fixed, then we'll pay you. And finally, they've had it. You won't see that in the paper. Nobody wants to get involved in those fights. You want to get along with everybody. I'm really optimistic that under the new leadership, if it's confirmed, which it should be, he's a good man, we'll get that dog back on track again. It's going to happen. There's no reason in the world a virtual tower can't function in the United States of America when it operates in Europe and other parts of the world. There's simply no reason. It's called commitment. And so we expect that piece to come together quickly. There's another provider who wants to get involved. And we'll have that third piece resolved. Those three pieces. Then we'll have that air service, Earl.
Mr. Overcash, my name's Ken Beatty. I'm new to Loveland. I've never felt safer in my life living anywhere. I hear people upset about a lot of other things, but wow, you gotta go other places. Somebody's doing a good job around here. But here's what I heard a moment ago. I heard something to the effect of you've been led by my way or the highway. So my question for you is, when you really believe in something and you know it's right and you push it forward in the council chamber and you still fail, how will you handle that?
You need to work as a body. And there's a time that you can express your opinion and fight your battle, but you don't keep fighting the same battle over and over and over again. You take what you get, and then you look for ways to make it better over time. You don't just say, I'm done with it, and keep fighting it. It's will of council. We operate as a body of 9, and thank goodness we have 9 people, because we're all approach things differently, and we're representing our citizens. And you have to work towards a workable solution that's in the best interest of the community, even if it's not 100% what you want. I'll give you an example of how we move forward on something like that. The champion of Pulse is standing over there, and he gets a lot of grief for that because he's kind of a strong arm type guy. He used to sell cars. I mean, you kind of expect it. So, and I say that with affection. And I was a real slow adapter. I came out of the mindset, I trust business being competitive more than I trust government doing a good job. I needed to really be convinced. Well, it was going through council, and after about 2 years, I mean, we had task force, I don't know how many hours we all spent on it. We finally got to a point that the first vote was what, 7-2, 6-4, 6-3? What was it, John? 5-4. And I was on the wrong side of the 5. And I like being on the majority side, because that means we worked real hard and came up with a solution. We're there. So we went back, I think I recall, I don't know how many votes we had. I know one was always no, but we went back and we kept working on it. We took what we had, we kept working on it. We kept working. Eventually, we implemented Post with an 8-1 vote. Because even though it was workable, we kept saying, there's got to be a way, can we make it better? Is there something else we can do? Can we agree on that? Can we get past that now? Is there a way to enhance it a little more? Is there a little more oversight we can put in, a little more protection for the citizens we can put in? And we came around and did that as a group, and we became an 8-1 vote. And that's how we get to 8-1 votes now, or 7-2 votes. Once we get to a consensus, it's the right thing. Okay, how do we work this so that we all feel good about the solution, knowing it's never perfect? Who's perfect? So that's the mindset I think you have to bring when you're working with the body. You have to bring that mindset. How can I make it better? Take what I got, but how can I continue to make it better? It's what we do with our lives. Each and every day, how can I do better?
Hi, Don. My name is Mike. I just wanted to observe a crowd. Thank you, Elijah. We have another young couple up front. I don't mean to point out youth or generationalism, if I want to make up a term, but we've got 18 to 40-year-old votes. I don't know if they vote. You know, there's maybe statistics on how it breaks down on who's voting, but my question is what do you do to talk to the youth? Look around the room. That's all, you know, I think you know what I'm saying, but you know, anyway. There you go.
He's a retired principal of a high school. How many years?
A long time.
A long time. He won't tell. Long time. The communication challenge goes beyond just the youth. I'm encouraged by what I see in the youth and the younger generation. I look at the number of clients that I work with that are under 30. I look at the number of clients that are 30 to 40 that I work with in the community. And they're engaged. We use the stereotyping, you know, youth don't vote. Well, you know, a lot of old people don't vote either. They're not engaged. A lot of people aren't engaged in their 40s because they're busy with work and raising a family. But we need to communicate better as a city. I'm delighted we have a small town paper. I'm not happy that it's owned by the Denver Post because I don't agree with most of its policies, but I know the people that work that paper. They care about our community. And that's one way we can get information out. But you know the number of people that have called me in the last week and asked, hey, who do I vote for? Who's running for mayor? And they're in Ward 4. I mean, I know these people, and I'm like, I guess those signs aren't effective. I need to buy more. I haven't hit my quota yet or whatever. But we need people to become engaged because they care and they see that they make a difference. They're being heard at the local level. I understand not communicating at DC or Denver. That's frustrating. But you know what? We communicated real well this summer down in Denver, and the governor heard us on some issues. Young people, old people, everybody, we communicated. So it's a matter of people taking personal responsibility regarding regardless of your age, in getting involved. This young man talked to me 2 years ago about running for city council. He said, you went for mayor, I'm gonna backfill you, what do I need to know? So I realized right away, oh my God, this guy needs to know everything. No, you just need the right heart. You'll learn things as you go along, and he's running this year. Young guy. Kevin.
Olivia Lowe.
Hi, Olivia.
You said earlier that, as mayor, you represent all the residents of Loveland, right? I received a clear bag that had 4 different pieces of literature in it. It was Fogel, you, and Ron Weinberg's name was on there, capital. But there were things within that literature that made some very unfair, untrue, and disrespectful remarks to our LGBTQ community. So as someone who is running for mayor, and someone who obviously leans very, very, very far to the right, how are you going to represent all of Loveland, and what are you going to do to protect and respect our LGBTQ community?
So I think there's a couple things in there, so let me see if I can unpack that a bit. When I ran an ad in the newspaper, when I bought space, and I have purchased quite a bit of space in the newspaper, I didn't know what other ads were going to be run into the newspaper. It just appeared, matter of fact, I didn't know what was going to be right next to mine. I actually bought 2 pages, so nothing could be next to mine. They just got them inverted wrong. That was kind of interesting, left, right, they got the wrong left on the right side, but that worked out okay. But I don't know what else is going to be in that newspaper, what other ads are going to be run. I'm responsible for my content. I'm responsible for what I put on my material, and if it's my material, it says paid for by Don Overcash, and the ads even have my address on them. That's what I'm responsible for. So, I don't know what was in that group. I didn't know what was in some circular.
To be clear, it wasn't in the newspaper, it was
No, I
a
understand.
bag of information.
I understand. So there was a mass distribution, and it's very similar to if I buy a coupon and put it in one of those packages, they deliver a pack of coupons to your home, whatever they're called. I don't know what's in that. I'm only responsible for my content. However, here's another thing that I'm responsible for, and how many people in this room know me? So I can make this statement to you, and you know it's true. I value all people. I might not agree with a political policy or a political statement someone's making, but everybody in this room that knows me knows that I value all people. People are important to me. Now, some people can rub you. Some people like to get in your face, and you maybe take a vacation from them for a while. And you can always handle that better. I acknowledge that. But all people. End of statement. I mean that. No one who knows me would ever say Don is prejudiced on gender or sex or height. Well, tall people kind of rub me. It's just not in my DNA. It's just not me.
Hi, my name is Mary Kay Morrison, and I heard you say that it's important to bring new business to Loveland. And I'd like to ask you about the process of how you attract business. Can you please explain how incentives are given to business? And I know that there's been a lot of criticism of you and potentially others that you take, I'm just going to say, take bribes, are unduly influenced, and I'd like you to have the chance to address that tonight.
Which order?
How do you attract business?
Okay, I'll start, and remind me if I forget, because that's a good question,
Well,
it's appropriate.
I feel like it builds on each other.
Yeah,
Right?
in 2016, the city formed a task force of city employees and people who are very involved in the community. Business leaders, people like Earl who have been involved. And they developed a economic development strategic plan. And a plan provides guidelines of how the city should operate in this area. and it included a section on incentives. It'd be great if we could just be such a wonderful community, everybody wanted to come here instead of someplace else. We have been trying to get a grocery store on the east end of town for 8 years. I have, with others. So far, I'm still driving west to get to a grocery store. I live off Boyd Lake Road. I like to save the environment. I like to spend less time driving to get to a grocery store. I'd like to be able to get to a super grocery store instead of smaller grocery store. I'd like a lot of things. Until we get the rooftops, we can't get the grocery store. Well, we're getting there. But we're competing with other cities. My greatest fear right now when you talk about business is a grocery store going over into Johnstown. So we got more traffic going east, shopping and paying the taxes in Johnstown, and I'm still having to drive because they're going to go with the best deal for them. They're a business. So here's what I view. We've established a policy, and it's been renewed by council just this past year, an incentive plan. You can go to the website, City of Loveland, Economic Development Department, strategic plan, it's there. It's about 10 pages. Outlines everything. That gives us guidelines. We can hold the city responsible to operate in. We're competing with other cities for win-win situations. A business is looking for a win. We as a city work for the citizens. We want a win. If you get into situations where it's they win, you lose, that's not smart. So we negotiate. And people give up something. And somebody gives something else. And eventually you reach a point, you either got a deal that's a good deal for everybody, or you don't have a deal. Now, is everybody happy that there's even a deal? Nobody's happy there's a deal, but we're happy we get the benefit of the deal, but we love to criticize the deal. But it's life. So we have to make sure the deals are fair. That's why the policies are written, and they have to abide by those. They have metrics they have to perform against. There's criteria that have to be met. For a small incentive, or if we get into incentives where we're doing tax sharing. Those incentives that are used in that situation, like the one we just completed, it's a $1 billion situation. There's a lot of reasons to be against it. I can make up a lot of them, and I run out of those, I can come up with more. But there's a lot of reasons why it's a good deal for Loveland. And you got to make sure you cover them, right? You line them up. At the end of the day, is it a win-win? If not, you don't go forward. It's a win-win. Those incentives are being used. The incremental tax revenue generated is going to be used to pay for the infrastructure necessary to put that in so that this primary employer, corporate headquarters, not just a little retail store, but a corporate headquarters is coming here to Loveland. He's not in Northern Colorado. Those are higher paying jobs than just putting another in and out in. To get that infrastructure in there and paid for was critical. Otherwise, who's going to pay for it? As a financing model, who's going to pay for it? So what we're doing, instead of borrowing $150 million from the citizens or charging them higher taxes to pay for it, like you're in Ward 1, what do you care about a grocery store over here on I-25? You want one up by you. We borrow that money by committing future profits, taxes that are generated when that happens, to pay for that infrastructure. It's a financing tool. Growth is paying for growth. You're not paying for the growth happening over there unless you shop there. And then you might pay a higher sales tax to PIV. If you operate your business there, you might have, or build a home there, you might have some metro fees, you will. It's a financing tool. I don't know how else to finance it. Something that large. So, does that help answer that? And what was your last part of your question? That was important, but...
Oh, well, the last part was I see in the paper that you're accused of taking bribes. I mean, I'm just going to say it, right? Isn't everybody here kind of thinking it? I mean, not thinking it, but wondering. I'd like to hear you.
Well, I can answer that. I could answer, let's just say, it's ridiculous. I mean, someone wrote the other day, someone made a statement in public the other day. I have a transcript of it. that, and you know, they vote this way because then they get business from them, because they all got businesses. I'm not sure it's true, but it's a rumor, and it's ridiculous. You gotta deal with that in your ward. But, totally false. Really? Show me. Show me. That's ridiculous. Statements like that. Somebody asked me one day, how much have you gotten? I said, well, I think I got a half a Subway sandwich in 8 years, a couple of cans of Diet Coke, and some coffee, because occasionally we meet. And when we have a breakfast meeting or a lunch meeting with any developer, I pay my own way. I don't even split the ticket. I mean, I pay my way, he pays his way. So that's ridiculous. I wish they'd come up with something factual, but it is offensive though. Thanks for bringing it up. Hi, Don.
Yeah, Don Pearson. I did want to ask you a question. I emailed you a question a couple months ago and never got a reply. It regards, you shared a post on Facebook, and I think it was a musical video. I think it was called Try This in a Small Town or something like that. Now, the video was filmed in front of a county courthouse that was famous with a number of black lynchings. And the music video also promoted vigilantism and violence. And you shared that on social media, and you said, this is something I can really get behind, or words to that effect. And I'm wondering what was going through your mind to share something like that? And running for mayor, to me, I cannot understand that. And it's just, you took it down quite quickly too after you posted. But I'd like an answer now because you didn't give me an answer earlier.
Yeah, there's a lot of emails that I get. Thank you for bringing it up. I'm always happy to address it verbally. I take phone calls. I don't like emails, and I definitely don't do much on Facebook. I like the song. I grew up in a small town. I owned a business in a small town. I like the values of a small town. Some people read things into things that I don't read into things. I know how I feel about people, what I support and what I do. People already raised their hands in here, they know me. And I'm not going to take debate with somebody who has their opinions and perspectives. You want to believe that, you can believe that. But I'm not going to engage in those types of debates. I like the song. A lot of people like the song. I think it went to #1 very quickly because of the concept behind it. So, and I put up a lot of songs. Tom Petty's one of my favorites. I put them up. They're up for a couple of days. I take them down. I don't want it to get in the way of other things. I put up a lot of faith songs too. That really irritates people. I love talking about Jesus. And I do that on my Facebook page. It is not my political page. I don't put anything up on my Facebook political page anymore because I'm just tired of it. I really am. Can't we just work and get good things done and quit this stuff? Let them do it in D.C., not in my town. So I haven't put anything up on that page forever. It just sits there. I don't even know. I don't know how to take it down probably. My personal page, I put up things, take things down. I'm not ashamed of anything that I put up. And occasionally I take things down, rotate things through. So.
Good evening, Don. Christopher Say. One of the hats that I wear here in Loveland is, I'm honored to be as an alternative commissioner on the Utilities Commission. And I want to praise the city of Loveland, our utility department, our water, sewer, our electric is just one of the finest organizations that could ever be. One of the positions you will hold when you become mayor is you will become a board member on Platte River Power Authority.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yes. Platte River Power Authority is where the city of Loveland buys its wholesale power, and it also owns various infrastructure projects, including the Rawhide Power Generation Facility just south of the Wyoming border. Mm-hmm. As you know, because of our state legislature, one of the things that's come down is net zero, Green New Deal, and the elimination and closing of Rawhide Power Plant. I would like to know, as a board member on Platte River Power Authority, what will you do to change the direction of Platte River Power Authority in what I see as a constant and very scary continual rise in our electric rates to meet the net zero Green New Deal?
Great question. I think we're all concerned about that. We all believe in our environment. We all believe in sustainability of energy. The best deal I can get is something that can be replenished without a lot of cost, right? We'd all like that. And we can continue dreaming, but we're working towards it. Platte River Power Authority, we're a partner company, or a partner city in the ownership of Platte River Power Authority. And they're unique in the nation. There aren't many of them like that. And they've done an excellent job in supplying us with power in northern Colorado. It's one of the reasons why we're a magnet for attraction. You think of a business that uses electricity, they want to go to California? Even Texas is having problems. You go to Minnesota, and you're going to say, it's all got to be renewable, or Maine, not going to work real well. I lived up there. But Platte River has worked well so far. They operate on 3 pillars, and I might not get the exact phrasing right from their website, but they want financial stability, financial sustainability. If you charge out of sight, you're going to fail to be in business. They have to be economically sound with their pricing structure. They have to be reliable providers of energy. They can't be unreliable. So their decisions are based, those are 2 criteria. And they have to be environmentally sound. They have that perspective of being environmentally sound. See, I went over my time limit, someone's calling me. Thanks, Kevin. So their decisions come in those three platforms. And there's some people willing to sacrifice the cost, the economic cost. There's some people that sometimes are willing to sacrifice reliability. There's some people that don't care about the environment. Well, that's kind of foolish. All 3 of them are important, need to work together. What we're faced with is a legislature that mandated what isn't feasible at this point in time. They're aware of that. But they have worked well, and they think they can get 85–90% there and maintain competitive pricing, environmentally renewable, sound, and reliability. Getting that extra 10%, Jason Frisbee, who is the CEO, was in front of council just recently. I love that guy because he's honest. He just says, I can't get you there. I'll try, but there's no way I'm going to get us to 100%. Not going to happen, but I'm going to keep working on it. But we have to honor these 3 pillars or we're not being true to our purpose, our cause. I love people who are principle-driven over politically driven. That decision of the legislature is politically driven. And when we become principle-driven, that's when we can work together and come up with solutions that give and take. And that's what I love about being on council. I mean, I can just mention a couple of counselors, and somebody mentioned it, I light up. Because we had a working relationship that wasn't in place years ago, because we're starting to work on the right things, and we got past the interference that people throw in our way sometimes. We often get off base, right? We do. We need to get back on the right trail. And I think Platte River will do that. But he's honest. So when we get to 2030 and we don't hit that level, I don't know what to tell you. We're ahead of, boy, about everybody else. And we're honoring our platform, our pillars. And that's what we need to hold them accountable to that. And we're just going to have to fight a battle a few years down the road. And maybe something will happen from a technology perspective that'll free us up. It's just not on the horizon right now.
Thank you for being knowledgeable.
The night's not over. If you are, first of all, thank you, Don. tonight was nothing scripted, no hidden questions, no stacking the deck on questions. And I think that's the best way for us as a community to hold everyone from this day forward in any type of form, I don't care what they want to call it, that we hold them accountable to that so that every question gets answered, no matter what. Left, right, middle, doesn't matter. We need to be informed. So that's what tonight was about.
Kevin, I got a question. Who do you think asked the best question out here tonight?
Me.
You did? No. I don't think
I didn't hear
so.
it.
Who answered the best question? Because I got one of the 45 left. And you can take it out for target practice. You can throw it away. You can wear it on the golf course. The cart ladies will think it's me and they'll give you a free one maybe. No, I don't think so. Who asked the best question tonight? Who'd like the hat?
The first question.
The first question?
Race car hat.
The young man?
No, to your right.
Al?
Yeah, that guy.
Your neighbor will like it, Al.
Now, as we wrap up, here's what's going to happen. If you're currently running, if you are a candidate, stand.
Yeah, we got some in here. Stand up.
Thank you for that.
If you're an elected official, you can stand up. If you currently hold office. Yeah, that'd be you, Captain. Okay. Other category. If you're a regular who comes to council meetings. If you're a regular at city council meetings, you're just addicted, you like to come to council meetings and observe what's going on, yeah, stand up. Because I appreciate you. Olivia, stand up. You're one of the regulars. Yeah, I don't care. Chris Side comes regularly. These are the people you need to join and get to know. You don't have to agree with them, but we need to listen to each other. And we're going to change that on council. We got to get past some of this community, stuff going on.
What
It's
about a
not in
city
our
committee?
town. We don't need that. So go
City
ahead.
committee.
Yeah, anybody
You're
on
serving on a
committees,
city committee.
boards
You're
or
a
commissions?
citizen And you are serving.
There you go. How many are working and paying taxes so my social security check comes next week? All right. Listen, I have some literature over there. If you want a campaign sign, it's not too late. I got to do something with them. They're going fast. I have to replace 5 or 6 a day. So there must be in demand someplace. Feel free to take one if you'd like. It's legal. Nobody will be mad at you. We'll mingle. Any other questions you want, feel free to ask. And please, this election, talk to your friends and neighbors. Vote for somebody. Please, vote. Do that. Then you've done your duty. Thanks so much for being here.